Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in, much appreciated. And welcome back for another installment here in the tackle room, late night tackle room seminar. I promise you guys I'm going to be getting out on the lake to do some videos coming up. But man, I've just been so busy here since I got back from that Toyota Championship. I have just not had time to get out on the lake any. And I just got my prop fixed at Boatworks a couple days ago, so I'm back ready to go there. But plan to be getting out on the water to shoot some videos here, but for now we're going to stick with the tackle room. But got a good video for you guys today. I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to choose the right size of swim bait for fishing this time of year and really over the next couple months here. And going to give you guys a bunch of juice on that. I think you guys will like it. But real quick before we get started here, just a couple quick housekeeping tips to keep the bills paid. If you guys are interested in becoming members of the channel, I just wanted to give you the weekly update. Just go to my YouTube homepage. You can click there on Intuitive Memberships, and it gives you all the information about becoming members. You get extra videos every week that aren't seen by the public. Some got access to my personal email address for your fishing questions, and it's a good way to, if you like what I'm doing here, it's a good way to help support the channel out. And also, please subscribe. If you guys haven't subscribed, it'd be much appreciated, and make you eligible for our monthly giveaways. And I've had several people ask, well, we don't ever see, who the winners are. I post the winners on my Facebook and Instagram page after we draw for them each month. But I'll start announcing it on a YouTube video too for people that don't have that. Okay, guys, let's talk a little about these swim baits I'm going to talk about here. First of all, swim baits, or the whole, I guess, the genre of swim baits have been around for 50 years. I mean, it started out with just the twisty tail grubs. That's sort of a swim bait. And like here in the Ozarks, back 30, 40 years ago, everybody was fishing these big like kaolin grubs, these twisty tail grubs, and basically catching fish back then the same way we catch them on now with the modern swim baits. But with the advent of the technology, the realism and the colors of the new swim baits, they become like a staple winter bait. Well, not just winter, all year long, but really this time of year is where they shine. And there's some keys to catching fish on them based upon the size of swim baits you use. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk about three of them, my three favorites. And the first one is the 3-inch megabass spark shad, the 4-inch megabass spark shad, and the Zoom Z-Swim, a swim bait, 3.5-inch. So each one of these has a little bit different application, and I'm going to go over each one of them to sort of let you know how I decide. A lot of your swim bait sizes, it has to do with a lot of different variables. It has to do with the water clarity in the lake you're fishing, has to do with the predominant species of the bass that you're fishing, and the water depth that you're targeting. And for the most part, when we're talking about fishing swim baits this time of year, we're talking about fishing basically out off the point ends and sides, sometimes parallel bluffs, steep banks, and fishing them maybe in ditches, the middle of coves and that type of stuff, particularly over, like if they're standing timber in a lake like say Lake Hartwell in South Carolina, Lake Lanier in Georgia, some of the lakes here in the Ozarks. So depending upon where you're fishing at, the technique for the swim bait is going to be a little bit different. But first of all, let's start out with a small one here. Start out with the Megabass 3-inch spark shad. This is a 3-inch bait. This is probably my favorite size for swim baits for this time of year because it catches numbers and it catches quality both. It's the same size of a lot of bait fish, around 3 inches long. And I like this particular bait anytime I'm fishing a lake that has 3 species in it: spotted bass, largemouth, and smallmouth. And if the water visibility is over 3 feet, actually over 4 feet would be more ideally. So say 4 to 10 foot visibility is where I key in on this a lot. And one of the things about this thing, a big key for me on this bait is matching the right head size and the right line size to it, to catching fish on it. Most of the time I like to fish this bait on like a 3/16 or a 1/4 ounce head. Make long casts with 6-pound test line, a Seaguar and Bizex fluorocarbon I use on it, straight fluorocarbon, and I'll fan cast it in and around the point ends and sides. And what I try to do to determine the correct depth to fish this thing on is I'll graph around the point and I'll try to get a feel for the activity the depth that the activity's at. I don't necessarily have to see fish, but if I'm looking for like, balls of shad, that type of stuff, sometimes they can be in 15 feet of water. Sometimes they could be out over 60 or 70 feet of water. But I try to get a feel for how far down the bass are suspended. Most all the time I'm focusing just on suspended bass with this little swim bait. So once I find that correct depth, then I'll cast it out and I just, count it down till I get to the zone, start just reeling it back with a steady retrieve. It doesn't matter if I'm fishing points, ditches, whatever. That's the way I fish this. But basically the small swim bait is for, clear water situations, mixed species lake. Okay, the next size I want to talk about is the 4-inch. This is the 4-inch Megabass Spark Shad. By the way, guys, all these are available at Bait Works in Springfield, Missouri here. I'll include the link in the description. If you use that link, it's another great way to help the channel out here. That'd be appreciated. And the 4-inch Spark Shad, a little bit bigger, as you can see here. A little bit wider too. It's not only longer but wider. But the 4-inch Spark Shad is when I'm targeting lakes that have basically more of a largemouth population in it, or more of a population of bass that are quality bass that are known for a little bit larger size. So if I'm in a lake that's got a lot of largemouth in it, I don't have to have quite as clear of water for this to be effective. I still want to have that visibility of at least 3 feet. I think 3 feet, guys, when you're talking about fishing this time of year in the colder water or in the late fall, I think that you need to have at least 3 foot of visibility to make for a really quality swim bait bite. Not that you can't catch them in a little bit dirtier water, but this is when it really shines. So the times that I'm using the bigger ones is if I get in a situation that's got, say, that marginal water clarity, like 3 to 4 foot clarity. And if I get in situations that, say we have a day out there that it's like really windy, cloudy, low light conditions, that's when I always go to the bigger size. Even sometimes if I'm fishing a clear water lake, even if the water visibility is 7 or 8 foot visibility, and you have a 15, 20 mile an hour wind and you've got overcast, or if it's raining, those fish will become more aggressive and they'll hit a larger swim bait in those situations. The small one, like I said, really shines on tough conditions where it's bright, not a lot of wind, clear water, but this will catch the more aggressive fish, and it will catch the bigger one too, obviously, just because of the size. Size of head on this, I usually go up a little bit. I'll use 1/4 to 3/8 ounce, depending upon the wind and how deep I'm fishing it. And it's the same rule of thumb that I use for the little one. I'm graphing to get a feel for, the depth that those fish are using, and I try to target that depth. Now, another way that I'll fish this too, the bigger one, is, say, for example, it's, late fall, water temperatures are not at their coldest. Say the water temperature is still in the 50s. And if you get one of those windy, nasty days, a lot of times those fish will pull up shallower on those points, and they'll get into that 5 to 10 foot zone. And when they're like that, I'll take the 4-inch Spark Shad, I'll put it on an 1/8 ounce head, and I'll simply cast it out there and just reel it back in like a crankbait. I'm trying to keep it maybe 3 to 4 foot under the surface. And a lot of times on those warmer, blustery, late fall, early winter days, late winter days, when that water temperature is over 50 degrees, you can catch some good ones up shallow doing that. But like I said, most of the time I'm using either the Megabass Okashira head or just a ball head. The Okashira head's a little small for the 4-inch, so I'm usually using a ball head on there. Now the next one I use is the Z-Swim. The Kai, this is basically a duplication of the Kitech, which is one of the most popular swim baits out there. The times that I'm using the Z-Swim, a 3.5-inch one, is basically to mix it up and give it a different look. The Z-Swim, like I said, both of these are about the same size. I mean, they're similar in size, but the profile's different. Sometimes these bass like this ring profile. I don't know what it is about it, but sometimes there'll be days when you can catch them on the shad-looking realistic swim bait like the Spark Shad, and then sometimes the Z-Swim or the Kitech is going to outproduce it. So a lot of times I'll have both of these on. I'll have, both of them rigged up to try to cast in different situations. The difference that I use when I'm using the Z-Swim or any type of a rib swim bait like this is I like to go to a lighter head, because I found out that the paddle tail, if you notice the difference in the paddle tail sizes on these, the paddle tail on the Z Swim or the Kitech is significantly larger. It puts out a little bit more vibration. So again, it makes this bait good in low light conditions, windy, cloudy days. But I like to go to a light head on this. And I usually use an 1/8 ounce head because I can take this bait on an 1/8 ounce head and I can fish it real slow, and I get that tail just really waggling. It just puts out a wide waggle. It displaces more water than the spark shad. And a lot of times, if the personality of the bass is a little bit more aggressive, they'll bite the Z Swim better than the spark shad. But you just sort of have to mix and match them up a little bit. You know, it's because it's really hard to tell. Sometimes they just like one over the other. I have found a little bit in my own experience that smallmouth really like the ring-ribbed type swim baits, you know, better than, you know, like the, the spark shad. I mean, I catch more spotted bass and I catch more largemouth on the spark shad. But if you got a lake that's got a lot of smallmouth in it, like Lake Cumberland, Dale Hollow, a lot of the lakes up north, you know, it's hard to beat these little rib swim baits here. Another thing that I'll do with this in the wintertime sometime is a lot of times in the winter, these fish are real bad about nipping these things. So a little technique that I use here sometimes is I'll take a screw-in head that's got one of the screw locks, and I'll just cut the hook off of it and just screw the head into the end so there's no hook on it. And then I'll take a little piece of fluorocarbon that goes back about 1 inch, and I'll put a tiny treble hook back in the back here on it. So the one barb of the treble hook is buried. Let me get a treble hook out and I'll show you here. This is sort of a off the topic a little bit, but it's a good winter tip for you. So what I do is I'll get the line right back towards the end of it. Get this treble hook off of here. And every time that I try to get a treble hook out for you guys, I can't ever dig one out of here. Okay, here we go. So what we'll do is after I've got my line coming off the head, I'll come back in the back and I'll bury it in like this. And this is, I wouldn't use a hook this big. This is just the one I pulled out of here. I go to a smaller hook, but it basically sets in there like this. And this is the only hook you got. Sometimes I'll set it further back, and those short strikers will come up and get it, and you can really hook them really good like that. So anyway, guys, that's how I determine the 3 sizes there. I don't use anything bigger than a 4-inch swim bait during the winter. This is the biggest I use, but for the most part, you know, it's the 3 here. It's the Z Swim, 2 spark shads. I'm guessing most of the time I'm using the 3-inch model. I just got a lot of confidence in the 3-inch model to catch numbers and quality fish, unless it's one of those nasty days. So anyway, guys, hope that gets you a few more bites. I think it'll add up if you just, you know, try some of those guidelines a little bit as far as for your size of your swim bait. And it's about swim bait season right now, so give it a try the next trip you're out there. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see y'all later.